Hey, what's up everybody? It's TheHyphenate here, and today we're going to talk about diffusion filters and why I think they're a must-have, especially if you shoot a lot of video. I currently have the Tiffin Black Pro Mist 1/8 strength diffusion filter on my lens right now, and I pretty much shoot all my YouTube videos and about 90% of any video productions that I do, from event videography to music videos, etc. These stay on my lenses 90% of the time. So what are diffusion filters and what are their benefits? Now, I'm not going to get super scientific in this video, so let's just keep it simple. They soften highlights, they soften skin and minimize blemishes. Overall, it softens your image as it reduces contrast and sharpness. And another thing they tend to do is bring up the shadows just a little bit. And one of the most noticeable traits is that it does create a halation effect. You get this halo glow over lights in your shots. For example, the Pavo tubes here behind me, you can see a glow. If you look really closely to the edge of the light, it's not just the light, it kind of radiates a little bit more. Now that's actually one of my favorite traits about diffusion filters and why I use them on all my music videos. Now they do sell different types of diffusion filters that have different strengths. They have 1/8, 1/4, full, and even higher than that. Now right now I have a 1/8 strength. And now for me, this is actually the perfect amount. It's not overkill. It doesn't make everything super glowy, but it does create a very cinematic image. Now you can definitely get a higher strength and create a very dreamy, glowy look, but for most day-to-day uses, I wouldn't recommend that. The 1/8 or maybe the 1/4 is probably the ideal strength for YouTube videos, event videography like weddings, quinceañeras, sweet 16s, documentaries. But when you start to get into stronger diffusion filters, I feel like they really only work for very specific looks in very specific scenes. Now, one thing that I do with all my filters, whether they're variable NDs, CPLs, or diffusion filters, is I get a bigger size, or at least the biggest size from my biggest lens, and then I get step-up rings to actually make that one filter fit across multiple lenses. This way, you don't have to buy a bunch of the same filter for different size lenses. If you want to know a little bit more about what I mean, I do have a video in the description that explains that process. Now, right now, I'm going to go ahead and unscrew the filter that I have on this lens. I'm going to move it and pop it back on so you can see the difference that it makes. So right now, I still have the diffusion filter on. Now, if you look at my skin, if you look at the lights, you'll see a big difference. Crazy difference. Now, like I said, I am using the 1/8 strength, and though you saw a noticeable difference when compared to it being on and off, overall, this strength still looks pretty natural. It doesn't look very dreamy. You only really notice that difference when it goes back and forth. So like I mentioned earlier, if you go stronger than 1/4, I think it does get to be overkill and it starts to be very noticeable that it's present. Now they make circular diffusion filters that can be screwed on directly to your lens, or if you have a lens that uses a matte box or an ultra wide lens that uses a filter box, they make diffusion filters for that as well. And I've actually shot using the 14mm f1.8 G Master lens from Sony, where that does not have a filter thread on it, so I can't put any circular filters. I actually have to put an adapter to put 100 by 100mm filters that are 2mm thick. It's a big square piece, but it's pretty lightweight, and I was able to use a diffusion filter on one of my skate videos where I had a bunch of Pavo tubes in the shots and I really wanted that glow effect. Now I did another skate video with the same lens and Pavo tubes in it, and it didn't have that glow. So you can see here, the Halloween Kills video that I did for the Barracks doesn't have a diffusion filter on it. And then now you can see the Santa Claus and Grinch video that I did with the Barracks has a more epic look when it comes to the lights because it does have the diffusion filter. There are some cheaper brands that make diffusion filters that are not that good. They can color cast, they can kind of soften the image a little too much, but the ones from Tiffin I highly recommend, and the one that I use for my Sony 14mm lens is made by HYPHENATE, which is another that I highly recommend. Ideally, you want a diffusion filter that doesn't really change your image beyond just kind of softening the image a little bit, still maintaining a good amount of the sharpness and contrast, but really just giving it the properties that people want diffusion filters for. Softening highlights, softening skin, and giving that halation glow. Now, I'm not sure if you can see here, but if you look closely at the filter, you'll see that there's actually a texture across the entire filter. That's what gives it the diffusion effect. Now, because of that texture on the filter, you will get some texture on out of focus areas, most notably on bokeh. Now you only really notice that if you're doing photos and doing either a lot of cropping or printing very large prints. On video, it's pretty unnoticeable. Now, like I mentioned, I pretty much almost always have diffusion filters on. The only times that I really don't is if I'm shooting outdoors on a sunny day, I feel like it's way too glowy. Also, if I'm shooting landscapes or wide angle shots where there are not really a lot of people that I want to focus on, or if there are too many lights in the shot that kind of come off also too glowy, then I pretty much have the diffusion filter off. But almost everything that I shoot, I have them. Now, one thing to know is that if you're using the same diffusion filter on a different lens that has a tighter focal length, it will amplify some of the properties on tighter focal lengths. Now, right now I'm shooting with a 24mm lens with a 1/8 diffusion. Now, the reason I like the 1/8 diffusion is because I can put this diffusion on almost all of my lenses and the effect is still pretty nice, not super noticeable, still feels natural. But if I had a quarter strength or even a half strength, if I were to use the same filter on a 135mm lens, then the effect would be way too strong for me and my style. So ultimately, whenever people ask me what strength to get, I usually recommend a 1/8 strength. Again, it all comes down to the effect that you want. So there you guys have it. That's an overview of diffusion filters and why I highly recommend them, especially if you're a videographer. If you're interested in getting any of the diffusion filters that I use, I do have links in the description where you can purchase them. It doesn't change the price that you get it at, but it does help this channel. Please make sure to drop a like on this video, drop a comment below if you have any questions, and please make sure to subscribe. I have a lot more videos coming soon. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.